The best practice is the lowest effective dose, your third psychiatric consultation. Today we're going to talk about physiologic reserves. The patient and family should understand the trajectory of physiologic reserves from birth to death. Generally, physiologic reserves are limited at birth and increase with maturation. Senescent deterioration in late life results in loss of physiologic reserves and eventual placement into Alzheimer's unit of a nursing home. At birth, the baby does not sleep through the night. The baby generally sleeps through the night at 4 to 6 months, acquires teeth in the first year, learns to walk at about 1, learns to talk at about 1, and is potty trained by the age of 2 or 3. In later years, senescent changes tend to mirror the maturation of the baby. In the last decade of life, people tend to lose their teeth. They tend to lose bowel and bladder control. The ability to sleep through the night is lost. Social sensibilities and modesty are also lost. Not closing the bathroom door, not zipping up, not dressing with modesty, irritability, rudeness, coarsening of language and behaviors can all be signs of senescent deterioration and dementia. The loss of frontal lobe executive functions is the basis of most of the deterioration, requiring placement into a secure Alzheimer's unit. The limited physiologic reserves and the ethics of medical experimentation on children combined to limit the number of medications that the FDA approves for children. The off-label use of psychotropic medications for children is very common. It is an example of experimentation without the benefit of FDA ethics committees and other safeguards. Medications are avoided for infants and tapered with senescent deterioration in late life. The best practice is the lowest effective dose of medications at any age. And for infants and geriatric patients, the lowest effective dose is often none. You can look up the Beers criteria for geriatric patients for a list of medications that are recommended not to be used. The practice of the lowest effective dose reflected in the Beers criteria. Look up geriatric safety Beers criteria for potentially inappropriate medication use in older adults. Physiologic age is not the same as calendar age. The physician, family, and patient need to know each individual enters senescent decline at a different time and rate. Also, loss of physiologic reserves can be masked by a robust physical appearance. Medications are usually not cures for mental illness. They usually are treatments with some benefits and some side effects, and on average, only reduce symptoms by 20 to 30%. The patient passes judgment on whether the benefit justifies the time, cost, and side effects. He does this by taking the medication or not taking the medication. Insulin is such a good treatment for diabetes that it would be considered malpractice to routinely recommend against the use of insulin for all patients with diabetes. No psychotropic medication has reached this status for the treatment of mental illness. 30% of depressed patients do not respond to antidepressant medications. 30% of schizophrenic patients do not respond to antipsychotic medications. 40% of patients with obsessive-compulsive disorder do not respond to medications for obsessive-compulsive disorder. 50% of patients do not take the medications prescribed by doctors. This is in reference to the mentally ill and medications for the treatment of mental illness. The pharmaceutical industry is well known for false advertising, resulting in lawsuits and hundreds of millions of dollars in penalties and fines. The readers should go on to the internet and read about Pfizer paying $325 million plus $430 million for a total of $945 million for advertising the benefits of gabapentin or Neurontin for bipolar disorder, ADHD, migraine headaches, and other types of pain. In general, the pharmaceutical industry promotes the use of psychotropic medications in a manner that brings patients to my office with expectations of cures, as opposed to limited, realistic expectations of modest improvements in symptoms. Much of the research on medications is funded by the pharmaceutical industry. Unfavorable research is often filed away and not published. As a result, physicians have a skewed view of the medications advertised and sold. The risk-benefit balance is misrepresented with more benefit and less risk than actually exists. Seldane and many other medications have been taken off the market in many countries because of severe and unexpected side effects not reported in early studies that resulted in a license to sell the medications. I began prescribing psychotropic medications in 1972 at Lafayette Clinic in Detroit, Michigan. Patients did not come to me for treatment of their mental illness. Patients came to me for a cure of their mental illness. Patients were disappointed with the notion that antidepressant medications could take 6 to 8 weeks to become effective. I was trained in psychoanalysis, transactional analysis, and other therapies. I would supplement the medications with psychotherapies, often continue psychotherapy without medications. Many patients are not willing to spend money on medications that only provided marginal relief from their depression, anxiety, or hallucinations. The literature reports noncompliance at the rate of 50%. I suppose noncompliance is out of line with the principle of unconditional positive regard promoted by the Rogerian school of psychoanalysis. Noncompliance implies a failure on the patient's part and dismisses a failure on the medication's part or the psychiatrist's part. I admit that when a medication does not work, I am disappointed in the medication and wish that I had not prescribed it. Does that mean there is something wrong with me? With Prozac, there was a big relief because it was harder to commit suicide with Prozac as compared to Elavil or amitriptyline. Prozac was not much better than Elavil for the treatment of depression. Many patients did not like the side effects and refused to take it. Impotence and loss of sexual drive, that's a big issue for men. There was heavy marketing of Wellbutrin, Seroquel, Effexor, Zyprexa, Clozaril, and every psychotropic medication as each medication entered the marketplace. In every case, the patient arrived in my office expecting more than what they got. They expected cures and received treatment. Patients came to my office with high expectations and eventually were disappointed that there was no substantial improvement and each medication had a set of unacceptable side effects. They continued to refuse to take all of the psychotropic medications at the rate of 50% or better. Not only did the patients have disappointment in the medication, they had disappointed in me for prescribing the medications. I continued to offer a combination of medications and psychotherapy or psychotherapy without medications. Non-compliance might be regarded as disrespectful of the consensus among psychiatric patients that psychotropic medications are disappointing. Why should the pharmaceutical industry expect patients to put up with high cost of psychotropic medications when the medications have so many side effects and are not cures? Why should the medical community consider the refusal of medications as noncompliance rather than a vote of no confidence in the medication and a notice to the medical community that more is expected and more is deserved? The current culture in the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry should be examined through the lens of a cult. A cult is characterized by secrecy and control of the top, from the top, imposed on members at the bottom. Not all the information known to the cult leaders is shared with the general membership. The pharmaceutical industry does not share all the research that it funds. The pharmaceutical industry misrepresents the benefits and the risks. The pharmaceutical industry recruits physicians to misrepresent the risks and the benefits of medications. This was done with Neurontin, which is also known as gabapentin, and many other medications. The pharmaceutical industry has been fairly successful in turning medicine into a cult. What are other aspects of a cult? The practice of anonymous complaints followed by excommunication or blacklisting is another characteristic of a cult. I have observed this behavior in state hospitals and prisons. There is a misperception in state hospitals and prisons that massive doses of medications are necessary for treatment. Psychiatrists who do not prescribe massive doses of medications or taper medications are subjected to anonymous complaints. The complaints are so anonymous that the people making the complaints are kept secret. The complaints is also kept a secret because it might reveal the person making the complaint. The psychiatrist is then faced with review by the peer review committee, which could lead to loss of hospital privileges. which could prevent accreditation by hospitals and clinics that might offer future employment. It could also lead to denial and malpractice insurance and possibility of future employment. This is a cult in my book. Others may have a different opinion. Consider this thought among patients who continue to take antipsychotic medications. There is a 17% recovery after 7 years. Patients who stop antipsychotic medications have a 40% recovery after 7 years. Why is the fact that patients who stop antipsychotic medications have more than twice the functional recovery after 7 years as compared to patients who continue medications not more widely known? I suppose that it does not serve the pharmaceutical industry to publicize this fact. I suppose if psychiatric offices are treated as a business with revenue stream as a priority over patient welfare, it is not a good idea to publicize the fact that patients who stop antipsychotic medications do twice as well as patients who continue their antipsychotic medications. I suggest that the reader log on to the internet and read the post by former NIMH Director Thomas Insill, Antipsychotics Taking the Long View by Thomas Insill on August 28, 2013. This information has been present since 2013 and has not been given wide consideration as far as I know. We should give more respect to patients who decide not to take medications. Noncompliance is a vote of no confidence. Tomorrow, we will look at the issue of the NNT, number needed to treat for one patient to get better. Thank you for your time and your kindness. Have a great day.